Welcome back, everybody. Monday morning show off and rolling on this final week of July. Camps are open. Plenty more. Everybody else jumps in the pool later this week. I look at the countdown to week 0, which is going to become the new week 1 next year, is 26 days and out, Sam Herder. That's it. 26 days away from Portland State getting on national television, which we can't wait for. As Sam Herder joins us each and every Monday at 9:35 from Hero Sports, BetMGM. All right, I apologize. Our past didn't. I saw you. I didn't have time to talk last week in Sioux Falls. Your impressions of Missouri Valley Football Conference Media Day and what went down?
Yeah, I thought it was solid. It was great to be there and talk to multiple coaches, multiple players. Typically in settings like that, the most valuable stuff is just kind of the side conversations you have and able to talk to a number of administrators, both in, at schools and the conferences or the conference itself. So I thought it was good. I thought the setup was solid. I'm sure they'll probably tweak some things here or there just to make it maybe a little more, media friendly and how we go about getting some interviews done. But overall, I thought it was a really job well done for it being the first time in a while.
Long overdue was the 2 words I used when we were leaving Sioux Falls last Monday, considering everybody else has done one and you've been to a handful across the country. This is long in the making of it. It's a way of, you want people to be talking about your teams, talking about your league. You got to do this.
Yeah. And it just, when you see all the other conferences doing it, although there's a couple, like the CAA did a virtual one. I think the Big South OBC, or now it's the OBC Big South, technically they also did a virtual one. But you've seen like the SoCon does a great job of a nice setup, and, the SWAC and the MEAC do a great job of having a cool setup there. The Southland does a great job. The UAC held theirs in Nashville. They actually did some photo ops in Vanderbilt Stadium.
I like that too.
I know they did that on purpose because that's where the FCS season is going to end. They're kind of kicking off the FCS season there. I mean, the Big Sky has like a 3-4 day media day in Spokane. And so with the Valley, who's been at the top of the FCS, it just kind of felt, not to steal a word from a certain university president, it felt a little JV, doing it on Zoom compared to everyone else doing it in person. So yeah, it's a long-winded way of saying, yes, it was overdue to get this done.
I'm interested. I was talking with a couple ADs when we were down there that this time next year, as I mentioned off the top, week 0 is going to be week 1 because now 12 games has become official for FCS. No one has scheduled a game yet for that. At least I haven't seen for that opening weekend. Is that surprising to you, or where do we stand if nobody's scheduled a game for that opening Saturday yet?
Yeah, I wonder if there's just so much going on this offseason and this summer with the house settlement and all that, where that's kind of been put on the back burner.
Maybe
because we didn't technically get the official thumbs up for week 0 being the new week 1 until the Division I Council met, and that was late June.
End of June. Yep, end of June.
Yeah. So I wonder if maybe some of the games that are already scheduled will be moved to that week 0. Scheduling a non-conference game, within a year could be difficult. I also wonder too if some conferences are still trying to figure out what they want to do. I know the Southland is moving to 9 games. The Big Sky is moving to 9 conference games. I didn't really get the sense that the Valley wanted to do something like that, moving to 9 conference games. And so it's just a matter of finding, some non-conference opponents for that week 0, or just, moving some previously scheduled ones, up to that week 0 slot.
I want to get to the Big Sky conversation in a second. I know Dan Lanning, the Oregon coach, was quoted at Big Ten Media Days saying he wants to move everything up. So it's just a matter of time. Like, we may have like a 1-year window where the FCS has it all to themselves, and then after that, the new start of the season is going to be that final Saturday, or maybe even earlier than that in August. And that's going to be when everybody jumps in the pool. There's no more week 0, which is dumb to begin with.
Yeah, we've talked about it. It seems like it's just a matter of time before the FBS also fully moves into week 0, just to get things started even earlier. That provides more flexibility in the postseason, especially in the FBS, as their postseason is getting is getting longer and expanded with the CFP. I know one thing that was brought up to me at the Missouri Valley Football Conference Media Day is trying to get the FCS playoffs off of Thanksgiving. The first round again know exactly how you would do that, because if you move it back, then maybe the semifinals are bumping up against Christmas. But I know that I don't know if it's like an active conversation nationally, but I know that is one thing one AD brought up to me is just, can we not play on Thanksgiving, because that's just such a brutal weekend for fan attendance
Yeah.
and TV viewership and all that. And I don't know if they'd be able to move off of that or not, but maybe starting in week 0, maybe that provides a buffer in there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know how you avoid that, because if you put a regular season, if you're moving up, that might just be a wonky weekend for them. They haven't been able to figure it out forever. I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how the calendar would work, especially
Yeah.
because you don't want the FCS title game to move off of this Monday slot where they kind of have
Right.
the football TV window to itself. And so I don't know if that is something that is going to happen, but that's something I've heard. I think I asked some coaches in the past, like, what's one thing you would change about the FCS playoffs? And one is seeding more teams, which we now have. And the second is not playing on Thanksgiving weekend. But again, how would you move the calendar around to be able to get that done? I'm not sure.
The big, I thought, note out of Big Sky Media Day, as you mentioned, out of Spokane, was Tom Wistrcill, the commissioner, announced that starting next year, they're going to go to 9 league games. Obviously, they're moving to 13 teams with the additions of Southern Utah and Utah Tech. That means they only will play 3 non-conference games. I'm intrigued on this because we talked about it last year, and we both hammered the CAA with the unbalanced schedule. You're not playing everybody. You don't necessarily get a true champion. This could really lead to that in the Big Sky, Sam. If not everybody's playing everybody, we don't know how good you are if you don't play a balanced schedule.
Yeah, and that's with the Big Sky, and I think I said it on the show as well, with them adding the 2 Utah schools. I wasn't a big fan of that, just because you add more to your football standings, which means not everyone is playing everyone, and the 2 teams you add haven't been very good recently. Southern Utah's been okay, but I think they're going to take a step back this upcoming year, and so it kind of waters down your conference. And we've seen that with the CAA as well, where what do they have, like 15 or 16 members, or and that's dropped down. Now it's going back up as far as the membership there. But you've seen, like with the CAA last year, you see them kind of have the benefits of this watered down standings and inflated records by getting, I want to say, 4 teams into the playoffs. But they also got punished because they had 2 teams that were 10-2. I want to say Rhode Island and Richmond, but neither of them got first round buys because they didn't have any ranked wins, or if they did, it was 1 ranked win. And so there's benefits to having that big of a conference where you don't play everyone. You can have a lot of 7, 8, 9 win teams, but at the same time, if you're Montana State and instead of playing Weber State and UC Davis, you play the Utah schools. Well, that's 2 less ranked wins, potentially. I know Weber hasn't been ranked, recently. So I don't know. I don't necessarily like having, these big conferences. You wish everyone could play everyone, or maybe you just avoid one team within your standings, because your playoff resume can really be interesting to look at when you have a conference that is that big.
I'm interested too if how that you mentioned about the seeding wise, if you have teams in that league now that play 9 games and don't play the tougher competition, that they get rewarded. If they're Rhode Island is a great example last year. They go 10-2 and get a top 8 seed, but we don't really know how good they are.
Yeah, and that's why you kind of would have wanted, with this extra game added, that it would just add more non-conference games.
Yes.
I think that was the initial thought, where week 0, not even week 0 Saturday, but Thursday, you can start playing games for the FCS, and that can create some nice TV windows. So that's one exciting part.
Yep.
The other exciting part is it could open the window for better non-conference matchups. But if every conference, and I don't know if every conference will do this, but if most conferences just decide to add one more conference game, that kind of takes away from, having nice non-conference or better non-conference matchups. And so it'll just be interesting to see how it all shakes out.
I got this email to ask you, what if Valley teams play each other as a non-conference game? Because that could be, that's a way around it. It's a non-conference game, but you're playing a team if you don't play them in your league, if you miss them on the rotation. I don't know how I feel about that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's an option.
Yeah.
I know the SWAC does that a decent amount, where they play each other a decent amount in the non-conference. So it's not a conference game, but they still play each other. There's positives and negatives of doing that if you're the Valley, because, I mean, if you're like if you're South Dakota and you want to, have a nice playoff resume and a nice strength of schedule, it's better to play Illinois State in the quote unquote non-conference than it is to play Mercyhurst. At the same time, like you could take a loss in that game, and also at the same time, like it's just, yes, it's a non-conference game, but I personally really like the FCS non-conference just because you get these cross-conference kind of data points and comparison points. And so you would hope they would branch out a little bit more, but that is an option, and it's more travel-friendly as well, just to schedule a conference game that has a non-conference opponent.
I wanted to ask you a bit more on South Dakota State. We spent plenty of this on the offseason, and now we're here. Their camp begins later this week. The Jacks were picked second in the Valley preseason poll. That wasn't surprising. That's where I had them in my ballot. It may surprise some with the amount of changeover they had. And we've talked plenty on Bison quarterback, but Cole Payton is likely going to be the guy. Nathan Hayes is going to be in the mix. Chase Mason has had this time as well, Sam, that it's very similar to the quarterback spots of both NDSU and SDSU. And I'm really interested to see how this plays out, especially considering the Jacks' first two games are Sacramento State and Montana State to start the year.
Yeah, it's two great tests to start the season. Going to Montana State is going to be a battle, and Montana State is most likely going to be 0-1 going into that one because they play Oregon in week one. And then that week one game for South Dakota State playing Sac State. I mean, that can go either way. I think that has potential to be a shootout. I could also see South Dakota State just kind of steamrolling them. I could see Sac State jumping out to a 17-3 lead just because they're going to be so explosive on offense. Their go-go offensive system is tough to stop as well. So I can see them jumping up to a quick lead in that matchup as well. But I think South Dakota State is maybe one of the most intriguing teams just because they've been the model of consistency for so many years. And then everything got flipped on its head when Jimmy Rogers and, his entire staff and a lot of transfers, went with them. And, you can look at it a couple of different ways because there's a lot of negatives there, but also at the same time, I think if they had their choice, the number of South Dakota State to Washington State transfers would have doubled, if they had their choice and wanted everyone to go with them to Washington State. But I think it kind of started with Chase Mason and Quentin Christensen, two guys that were looked at as leaders for this team to decide to stay. And then that kind of started a positive snowball effect of other guys staying. And so, doing the South Dakota State preview a handful of weeks ago, I think maybe some of the national perception is, South Dakota State got gutted. But in the game of football, when you have, a team with a lot of depth like South Dakota State and a lot of rotational players, they have a decent core coming back. I mean, they're going to have 3 to 4 offensive linemen with starting experience coming back. Their defense, they bring back, I want to say like 5 guys who played 200 or more snaps last year on the defensive line. Linebacker, they have some guys waiting in the wings. Even wide receiver, like they bring a lot of guys back that played a lot of reps. They just didn't get a lot of targets because all of those, went to Griffin Welding. So I think there's a decent core coming back, but really the difference maker for South Dakota State is going to be how good Chase Mason is and if he can deliver on that hype. He's on this morning, the East-West Shrine game. I saw that. The Shrine Bowl came out with their top 1,000 prospects, and Chase Mason is on there. And so they must really like what they see just from a physical perspective. I want to say Chase might have 2 years of eligibility left potentially, but he's technically draft eligible after this year. So the hype is there. I think the raw athleticism and skill set is there for Chase Mason, but that doesn't always translate to being a great quarterback and all the ins and outs of reading defenses and all that.
He's a phenomenal athlete. Just he hasn't played quarterback really yet. He hasn't, much like Cole Payton, phenomenal athlete, hasn't really played quarterback yet. That's something we're going to find out here for the first couple weeks of the season. Last thing before we go, speaking of quarterbacks, speaking of Sac State, Caden Bennett, who got the Hornets a playoff win in Grand Forks a couple years ago, left and is now at Delaware State. It's July 28th, and we still got guys moving to find spots.
Yeah, that's maybe the confusing part about the transfer portal is you can't enter now, but as long as you're in the portal, you can sign with the team whenever you want. I assume you have to get there by the time school starts. Yeah. So in August, but I kind of lost track of Caden Bennett. I knew he was already in the transfer portal. I just didn't see where he ended up. I know Carson Conklin. I think he ended up at an FBS school, maybe even Fresno State with Matt Ends. I might be wrong on that, but Conklin and Caden Bennett kind of split reps last year, and then Conklin kind of took that spot, and then both of them end up entering the transfer portal this offseason. And so that's a really late get for Delaware State. But I always really thought that Caden Bennett had great potential as a dual quarterback. He flashed at times. There's also some inconsistency issues as well, which is why I thought Sac State felt a little bit better with Carson Conklin. But now both of those guys are gone. And, Jane Rashad is now at Sac State, who's a well-known name from the Power 4 level. So just a lot of movement still going on in the portal world.
Conklin is at Fresno State, by the way. So you had it there. It just, you're right. I think for fans to think, well, wait a minute, how can the guy be moving? If you're in there, you have until the semester starts at whatever school to potentially sign. So there are guys that, again, late free agent signings, I guess. We see it all the time in training camp in the NFL. I guess why wouldn't we see it in college football happening in July and August? Great to talk with you, bud. Next week, we're in August. Game time. We're getting right around the corner. So appreciate the time as always.
Yeah, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Sam Herder joins us each and every Monday at 9:35. Give us the lowdown on FCS football. Mentioned we're 26 days out from week 0 to get ready for the 2025 season. We'll break. We'll come back, wrap up our first hour. Big second hour coming up here on this Monday. Glad you're joining us. Hot Mic rolls on. We're back right after this.